stand with an Our Father. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right, so next week we have our last class. It's going to be on the 7th, the 8th, and the 10th commandments. Tonight we're going to cover the 6th and the 9th commandments. And this is our last two classes. All right. Beyond that, what we have is on April 20th, Saturday, April 20th, from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. We have a day of recollection, kind of a little mini retreat, little mini class going on. And that'll be here at St. Paul's. Following that, we have a meal here, kind of a simple meal. And that's going to be at, basically 7:30. And then the Easter Vigil is going to start at 9 p.m. All right, so this is what we call Holy Saturday. Holy Saturday. It's the day when the earth is silent. The earth is silent because Jesus is in the tomb, at least his body is. We know that he descends into the realm of the dead on Holy Saturday. So we keep that day as a day of prayer, and especially for those who are going to receive sacraments on Saturday evening. Holy Saturday is supposed to be a day of prayer and fasting. Now, Good Friday is definitely a day of fasting, right? So on Good Friday, that means one meal, no meat, and two smaller snacks. Now, you might be like totally dead by Saturday night if you didn't eat for 2 days, so you can eat a little bit on Saturday. We're going to have a meal here before the Easter Vigil, so nobody's passing out. In church, we don't want that to happen. But any questions on that Saturday on what you can do? There will be some time, like if you wanted to, change clothes or something, you could do that between the 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. in that time there. Or if you live close by, you would have time to go home. You don't have to come to this meal at 7:30. It's just kind of a nice way to keep the spirit of the day. Instead of like going out to eat like right before Easter Vigil, it's just kind of, because we haven't celebrated yet. We'll party afterwards. So we want to keep the spirit of the day. Okay. So I'll put it there. Yep.
For that 4 to 7 thing, will there be time to go to confession, or should I make other time for that?
Yes, perfect question. Okay, on April 17th, this is a Wednesday. What did I say on the email? There's going to be extra time for confession. I know some of you have to make your first confession. So we're going to have extra time for confession. I'm going to put 3 p.m. To 5 p.m. right now. And we'll go as long as we need to go. So that's going to be some extra time. You're welcome to go to confession. You're welcome to go to confession at any of the times that we're in the box. And if the light's green, you can come on it. If the light's red, you wait for the next person to leave. Okay. And I have with me tonight a great tool for confession, which is called an examination of conscience. It's really going to help you reflect on your life and make a good confession. Okay, if you're making your first confession, you want to definitely go through this and make a list. Okay, so that way you get in there and you can just kind of, you don't have to rely on your memory, which can fail you in those moments. And you can just confess your sins, go through the list, and go ahead and just burn it afterwards. And do whatever you want with it, throw it away. Don't frame it, okay? And that'll be that. Okay, so I'm going to just leave these like here on the front, and if you'd like one, please take one. This is just an amazing examination of conscience. I mean, you never even knew some of these sins existed until you read this list. You're like, whoa, these are awesome. No, not awesome. But for example, my favorite from, this is underneath the heading of play. It says, have I been guilty of an excess or deficiency in resting myself in play? The soul's rest is in pleasure. Have I refused to express mirth at another's humor? A man who has no humor is an unreasonable burden to his fellow man. So, I was convicted of that for a long time. I'm like, yeah, I gotta work at that. So, it's stuff like, yeah, I love that. It's all sorts of like little fun things like that that you otherwise wouldn't reflect on. You don't do that. All right. Also, yes.
If we can't make that time for confession, what other options are there?
So I would say this upcoming Sunday, 45 minutes before any of the Sunday Masses. Okay, do you know when the Sunday Masses are? You got those? Or 30 minutes before any daily Mass. Beyond that, if you need another time, just let me know. And make sure that that's good and scheduled experience. Tonight we have an important topic to cover. Everything's important, right? But this is the evening to speak about the 6th and the 9th commandments, right? So this is going to be Chastity 101, okay? So I know everyone's been waiting for this class. We saved the best to last, right? So big crowd, and everyone wants to know about chastity, right? But this is, what is the 6th commandment? What is the 6th commandment, right? You shall not commit adultery, right? You shall not commit adultery. And as I mentioned last week, Jesus takes the commandments and he amplifies them, especially the 6th commandment. This is the one that he amplifies probably most directly. He says, whoever has looked at a woman with lust in his heart, or vice versa, has committed adultery in his heart. So Jesus deepens the 6th commandment. So you have the Old Testament, you should not commit adultery. You have the New Testament, we cannot look at another person with lust. And then the tradition of the church has understood the 6th commandment to mean the commandment that encompasses all of human sexuality. Okay, so the 6th commandment is kind of this like catch-all for all the moral teachings on human sexuality. Okay? So, to begin with, the Catechism says, first, it talks about this word, sex, right? Sex, which, unfortunately, most of us react to that word as a verb. And we think it's a verb, or an action. But that's not primarily what the word refers to. Right? What does the word sex refer to? It is a, what type of word? Well, it's a noun. It's a noun. There's two, right? There's male and there's female, right? There's a joke of some guy like filling out his, I don't know, his questionnaire, let's say, right? And it had sex question mark, and he put yes, please. Okay. He's just supposed to put male or female, right? This is what the Catechism first refers to, sex as a noun, right? It's male or female, right? And this is the same way the Bible begins as well, right? The first chapter of the Bible, right? Genesis chapter 1. God created man in his own image. He created them male and female, he created them, right? So we have to first begin by defining our terms. That's how you begin. And we have the term which I just mentioned, sex. We also have other terms you probably have heard, right? Gender. Okay? This is kind of the big, hot topic, the question out there that you will run into. What is the difference between sex and gender? Is there a difference? Well, Facebook would tell you that there is, it seems, right? How many genders are listed on Facebook? I really don't know. I'm asking you.
52.
52. Okay, 52. 52. I'm about 52. We don't need to know that, but it's interesting, I guess. Right, 52. All right. Now, before about the year 1950, at least according to some psychologists, sex and gender were identical, like they were the same. Since then, it's been used in different ways, and briefly, what you could say is sex refers to right, our biology, right, our what do they call it, genotype and phenotype. These are the chromosomes, so your XX or XY, and these are observable traits. Okay. Gender refers to the consciousness. Consciousness. I spelled that right. Of. Okay. So. The church, for its most part, will accept using these two words in this way. Okay, it's kind of funny how words translate, because in Italy, one time I went to a church and they had this sign that said "Stop Gender," "Stop Gender," and I was like, "What is this saying? Stop gender?" But what they were referring to is like gender ideology. Like the Facebook list of many genders, and this church was trying to say, we don't want to create confusing, so we're going to stop gender. That was, they were using the word in a different way than we use the word. Okay. So these words more or less can be used in the church in this way. Right? Sex as biology, gender as the consciousness of sex, right? Right. A boy discovers around the age of 2 or 3. They say that he is a boy, right? So that is his consciousness of sex, right? It's his psychological awareness. He is a boy. All right. Okay. So. Now, this reality of being embodied, right, of being male or female in God's image, affects all aspects of the human person. Right? All aspects. So every cell in my body is male. Every cell in the body of a female is female, right? It goes all the way to every aspect of the human person, right? And we are embodied. Right? This is part of human nature. We went through the 4 traits of human nature, and one of them was to be embodied. Okay? We cannot be a person without our bodies. We cannot be a person without our bodies. So even after death, when the soul is separated from the body, the soul is not a person. It's always longing for its body, waiting for the reunification with its body. Okay, at the last day, at the final day of the resurrection. So the human person is embodied. My friend Grayson, he once asked a professor, what is the difference between male and female beyond biology, let's say. And his professor was like, no, you have to start with biology. You can't get rid of that. But what is the difference? And I'm going to get into that a little bit, but I think that professor's reply was so important that we can never really get beyond our biological nature. Right? We are embodied creatures. Right? So the Catechism speaks about male and female with these two words. Complementary. Actually, I'm going to go with 3. Different and equal, or equal dignity. Equal dignity. All right. Male and female are complementary. They are different, and they are of equal dignity. Now, the most obvious differences are morphological. Right? The male does not look like the female. Now, beyond that, what would you say are the differences between male and female? Who's smarter? I'm just gonna go there. Who's strong? Right? The psychologist Jordan Peterson, who I'm going to reference a few times because he writes a lot about the difference between men and women, and I think he's smart. He says the main difference beyond biology is in interest. This is just, I'm just kind of trying to put some more meat behind this word difference, just to kind of help us move forward. He says that generally, men are more interested in things, women are more interested in, what do you think? People. People. Okay? That's what he says. And that's the strongest difference after morphology, or just the shape of our bodies. All right. Secondly, he says temperament. Temperament. Okay? Or like personality. Right? There's a personality difference between men and women. Men are grumpier, right? It's true that one of the biggest difference actually in personality, and there's not men and women are also alike in personality. It's not that they're completely different, but there's some differences. And one of them is in the personality trait of agreeableness. Agreeableness. And it's true that men are more agreeable. No, I'm just kidding. Women are statistically more agreeable. They're more self-sacrificing, polite, and avoid conflict more than men. Now, why would this be? Yep.
Because if women are more interested in people, then they are more willing to serve people.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. Definitely, yeah. They're more interested in people, so they're going to be more agreeable. What people do they have to serve? Children. There you go. Children, right? This is from Jordan Peterson. He says that the nervous systems of women are wired to raise children. And this comes out in their personality traits because they're agreeable. Because there's no way you can argue with an infant, right, who is a month old. There's no way. Right? You just have to agree. Right? They win. They win. Right? And conflict is to be avoided. right? Especially if you're holding a child, right? You're only gonna, if you're caring for a child, you're only gonna engage in conflict if it's really, really necessary, right? Because that's a big danger. So this is kind of how these personality differences are tied to, again, to biology. In a sense, you can never get away from a biology. Now, there has been a lot of good advancements, of course, in trying to create equality, equal opportunity between men and women. Right? And many good advancements have taken place. Obviously, I mean, I don't know all of them, but I know that now women can vote, right? And that actually didn't exist at one time. Right? It's hard for us to imagine that. Right? But there's also been movements in trying to take away the differences between men and women, okay? And to flatten out these differences. And one interesting place an interesting study that this is taking place is in Scandinavia. All right, so in Scandinavia, they're super rich. Does anyone know why? I wish I had some ancestors. I probably do have some relatives in Norway, but they ain't giving me any money yet. They're super rich. They got oil, right? So life is pretty easy. Right? And in Scandinavia, they've done a lot to try to create equality between men and women. Right? So they're going to have the same number of engineers, male and female. Try to have the same number of, they try to create these equal distributions amongst careers and amongst other opportunities, equal pay, all these things. Right? Now, what they found, however, is that in these kind of rich countries where they're moving towards taking away gender difference, the men and women actually tend to choose more traditionally male and female occupations or jobs. Does that make sense? Okay, so this is Jordan Peterson, and you can look it up. It's debated a little bit. But basically, in areas where they're trying to get rid of gender difference, and they're able to do so because they're just rich and they have money and their comfort, actually the men and women there tend to fall back into just the traditional roles. And the women want to be nurses, the men want to be engineers. And these gender differences are actually heightened again when the sociology is trying to flatten it out. So this is my point of saying that we can never get away from nature. Right? The philosopher, I don't know if the philosopher, but Horace, the ancient Greek, said if we throw out nature, it will come back all the same. Nature will always come back. Okay? And I think this is what at least some studies have shown. Okay? Is that there is a difference between men and women. All right? They're complementary, they're ordered toward one another, they're different, and they're of equal dignity. And this is the summary of the Catechism when it begins talking about the Sixth Commandment. It spends a fair amount of time just on the difference between men and women. Okay. Now, the virtue which governs sexuality is chastity. Right? Chastity. Here's some cool. Now, this is like some biology from the other night. I don't know, and maybe you guys know what's going on there. Micro. Yeah, something about what happens when a woman takes the pill. That's what I know. Anyone else want to explain that? So, but we'll focus on chastity. All right, chastity. All right, what does it mean to chasten something? To chasten, it just means to perfect. To perfect. That's where the root word chastity comes from. Right? Perfect. All right. The Catechism says this is the successful integration of sexuality. Okay, and it's not the most important virtue, but it's a critical virtue. It's a critical virtue. It's one that we must have in order to love. Now, if you're chaste, but you don't love, you're probably not getting to heaven, right? Even though you're like, yes, I'm very chaste, I'm proud of that. But I have no love for anyone. Right? That wouldn't make sense. You're not going to get to heaven. Okay. But if we think we can love without chastity, then we are fooling ourselves. Right? Because chastity governs the passions and orders them towards love. Okay. I'm sure you've heard a chastity homily by Father Eric once or twice. If not, wait a couple of years, you'll hear it. Okay. He likes to say it's like a running back who must hold on to the football. Okay. That's not the most important virtue that he has. Like, he probably needs to be able to cut and to sprint, to jump. Those are more important. But if he doesn't hold on to the football, he's not going to score a touchdown. Right? That's the critical nature of this virtue of chastity. All right. I'm going to read from I'm going to read from C.S. Lewis about these two ideas: chastity not being the most important virtue, but yet one that's critical, and also one that's not very popular. Okay. All right. Oh, this is not a different book. Too many books. Okay. So this is C.S. Lewis about chastity. Anyone read his book, Mere Christianity? It's a really great book, really good introduction to the faith. Even though he wasn't Catholic, it's a great book. Finally, though I have had to speak at some length about sex, I want to make it as clear as I possibly can that the center of Christian morality is not there, is not here. If anyone thinks that Christians regard unchastity as the supreme vice, he is quite wrong. The sins of the flesh are bad, but they are the least bad of all sins. All the worst pleasures are purely spiritual. The pleasure of putting other people in the wrong, of bossing and patronizing and spoiling sport and backbiting. The pleasures of power, of hatred. For there are two things inside of me competing with the human self, which I must try to become. They are the animal self and the diabolical self. The diabolical self is the worst of the two. That is why a cold, self-righteous prig who goes to church regularly may be far nearer to hell than a prostitute. But of course, it is better to be neither. Okay? C.S. Lewis. You gotta love C.S. Lewis. He's always using a cool word to say. I would just still use. Right? Alright, so, and I think that basically covers it. It's not the most critical virtue. It's not the center of Christian morality. That's why we didn't cover it in the first class. But it's still important. Alright? He goes on to say it's the least popular of virtues. No one really likes this virtue. Here's what he says. Chastity is the most unpopular of the Christian virtues. There is no getting away from it. The old Christian rule is either marriage with complete faithfulness to your partner, or else total abstinence. Now, this is so difficult and so contrary to our instincts that obviously either Christianity is wrong, or our sexual instinct, as it now is, has gone wrong. One or the other. Of course, being a Christian, I think that it's the instinct that has gone wrong. Okay, so it's kind of a either or, chastity, right? If you like this virtue, you're a Christian. Like it's kind of like to be Christian, right? This virtue is going to come front and center because it's one that is so, in our experience, it's so relevant. I mean, pretty much every day the human person is going to experience the sexual urge. Okay? You have two instincts. One is self-preservation, right? And that kicks in a lot. like that should mean something, right? And the sexual urge, right? Which word toward procreation. Okay. So in our experience, this virtue is coming up a lot. Okay. All right. Now, we need chastity to love because without it, we will be dominated by our sexual instinct, right? I think C.S. Lewis says, right, if a 16-year-old boy followed his sexual instinct, he